So I never thought I'd be the guy posting something like this. I always figured we were fine, better than fine, even. On paper, we had everything. A nice little house just outside the city, decent jobs, no kids, by choice, 2 cars, and friends who always said we were relationship goals. And for a while, I believed them. We were that couple who knew each other's coffee orders, who texted each other memes in the middle of the workday, who hosted game nights and had matching flannel pajamas every Christmas. I remember thinking, this is it. This is what grown-up love looks like. We met in college, cliché, I know. She was all sharp wit and soft eyes. I was the quieter one, always observing, always a little in awe of her. She lit up every room she walked into, and I was just happy to be standing next to her. We didn't fight much in the beginning. I thought that meant we were strong. You know, that we communicated so well we didn't need arguments. But now, looking back, I realize we just didn't talk about the real stuff. We were good at the surface. That's the word that keeps echoing in my head lately. Surface. We looked good. We sounded good. But somewhere along the line, we stopped being real. I didn't notice it at first. The slow erosion. The way her smile stopped reaching her eyes. The way I stopped asking how her day was because I already knew the answer would be, fine. It's weird how you can live with someone every day, share a bed, share a life, and still feel completely alone. But it didn't start with something huge. Not a blow-up, not a betrayal, not a big dramatic moment. It started with small things. And I guess that's what this story is about. Because it ended, or maybe it shifted, with something small too. Something that might sound petty. Stupid even. But when I served her dinner on a dirty plate, that wasn't an accident. That was the first true thing I'd done in a long, long time. It didn't fall apart all at once. It was slow. Subtle. Like a house settling in silence until one day the floor just gives out. I can't even tell you the first time I felt it, the shift. But there were signs, if I'm being honest. I just didn't want to see them. I'd come home from work and she'd barely look up from her phone. No hi, no smile. Just a vague hey, like I was a roommate who owed rent. At first, I told myself she was tired. Everyone gets tired. Long day, traffic, stress. But it kept happening. Every day. Every week. She stopped asking me about my day. And when I tried to tell her anyway, she'd nod, I still glued to her screen, thumb scrolling. I could have said I got fired or I grew a third arm and she would have just mumbled, that's nice, babe. We stopped doing the little things. No more Sunday pancakes together. No more surprise texts. No more random forehead kisses in the kitchen. She used to hum when she cooked. Dance a little in her socks. I hadn't heard her hum in over a year. And it's not like I was perfect. I know I retreated a bit too. I started staying later at work. Volunteered for weekend shifts I didn't need. I just didn't want to come home to that silence. That weird emptiness that fills a room when 2 people forget how to be soft with each other. We fought, but not about big things. Not about money or cheating or anything like that. It was always stupid stuff. She'd snap at me for putting the toilet paper roll the wrong way. I'd sigh too loud when she forgot to do the laundry again. Little jabs. Passive-aggressive silences. You start keeping score, you know? One sarcastic comment deserves another. And through all of it, there was this invisible thread running under the surface. I don't feel seen anymore. On both sides. We slept in the same bed but felt 1,000 miles apart. Sometimes I'd lie there staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathing, wondering if she was awake. Wondering if she was thinking what I was thinking. How did we get here? But we never talked about it. Not really. We just coasted. Existing together but not with each other. And that's what made it worse, I think. Not the distance, the denial of it. The pretending. Until I stopped pretending. It wasn't loud. It wasn't cruel. But it was deliberate. It came in the form of one simple decision. I didn't wash her plate. I tried, you know? God, I really tried. I wasn't perfect, I'll never claim that. But there's something soul-breaking about being the only one trying to resuscitate a dying relationship while the other person's just already moved on emotionally. I started small. I'd ask her out for dinner like we used to. She always had a reason not to go, too tired, too busy, not in the mood. So I started cooking more. Thought maybe if I brought back those little rituals, we'd find each other again. I'd make her favorite dishes. Carbonara. Stir-fry with way too much ginger, the way she liked it. I'd light a candle sometimes, just one, nothing dramatic. But she'd eat quickly, barely say a word, and then go back to scrolling on her phone or watching one of those reality shows she got into after we stopped talking. I remember asking her one night, are we okay? She didn't even look up. Just said, why wouldn't we be, and went back to texting. You ever feel like you're yelling into a cave and all you hear back is your own voice? So then I thought maybe we needed something bigger. A weekend away, just the two of us. I suggested it gently, like I was afraid of my own idea. She blinked and said, I don't think that would fix anything. That was the first time she admitted something was broken. But even then, we didn't talk. She just turned away like that sentence was the end of the conversation, and maybe in her head it was. So I started writing things down. Stuff I wanted to say but couldn't seem to find the moment for. Letters I never gave her. They're still in the Notes app on my phone. Stuff like, do you even like me anymore? Would you notice if I stopped trying? When did we stop being on the same team? There's this moment I keep thinking about. One night, she got home late from wherever she was, didn't say where, and walked right past me on the couch. I looked up and said, hey? She said, hey, back. But her voice was so flat, so hollow. And in that second, I realized something that terrified me more than anything else. We had become polite strangers. Living in the same house. Sharing the same air. But not the same life. And it all built up slowly. Quietly. Until I stood in front of the kitchen sink one evening holding that plate in my hand. Her plate. The one she always used. A little chipped at the edge. I stared at it. Still crusted with yesterday's food. And I knew I wasn't going to wash it. That was the moment. That was the choice. It was a Tuesday. That kind of day where everything just feels beige. Work had been a drag, traffic was worse, and I got home to the usual silence. Not the peaceful kind, the heavy kind, like the house itself was holding its breath. I made dinner. Chicken, roasted vegetables, rice. Nothing fancy, but decent enough. She was upstairs in the bedroom, probably on her laptop. I didn't call her down. I just started setting the table like I always used to 2 plates, 2 forks, 2 glasses. Muscle memory. And then I opened the dishwasher and saw it. Her plate. The same one she used every time. The one with the little green ring around the edge and the chip near the rim from when she dropped it last year. She always used that plate. Said it was the perfect size. It was sitting on the top rack unwashed. Probably from lunch the day before. A dried smear of sauce still crusted on the side. I held it for a second, water already running, ready to rinse it off. Then I stopped. I stood there, staring at that plate, my hand hovering over the sink like I was waiting for a signal. Like it was suddenly some sacred object. And then, without thinking too hard, I turned off the tap. I didn't rinse it. I didn't scrub it. I didn't swap it for a clean one. I walked it over to the table, set it down, and served her dinner right on that dirty, crusted plate. No drama. No grand gesture. Just that. A plate she'd eaten off the day before. Still dirty. Now holding tonight's meal. I sat across from her, watching as she came downstairs and slid into her chair. She looked down at the food, then at the plate, and blinked. For a moment, she didn't say anything. Just stared. Processing. Then she looked up at me. What the hell is this? I didn't answer right away. I just said dinner. She stared harder, her face twisting like she couldn't tell if I was joking or just insane. It's dirty, she said, like I didn't already know. There's crap on it. Why would you serve me food on this? And I just said I didn't feel like washing it. That's all. No raised voice. No sarcasm. Just flat truth. She scoffed. Actually scoffed. Seriously? That's disgusting. I nodded. Yeah, it kind of is. And then I picked up my fork and started eating from my plate, clean, pristine, untouched. She sat there, fuming, not touching her food. But I wasn't looking at the plate anymore. I was looking at her face. And something in me just broke a little. Because in that moment, she looked at me like I was a stranger. And all I could think was, that's exactly how I felt for months. She didn't eat. She just sat there, staring at the plate like it personally offended her. Like it was a betrayal. Like I was a betrayal. After a minute or two of silence, the kind that vibrates in your ears, she finally pushed the chair back and stood up. You know what? If this is your idea of a joke, it's not funny. Still calm, I said, it's not a joke. Her eyes narrowed. Then what the hell is it? Some passive-aggressive stunt? Because you couldn't be bothered to wash a plate. I looked at her then, really looked. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel small under her gaze. I didn't flinch or scramble to explain myself. I just sat in it. In the moment. In the truth of it all. I serve you food almost every night, I said. I cook, I clean, I show up. And I don't mind doing those things, or I didn't. But somewhere along the way, you stopped noticing. You stopped saying thank you. You stopped even seeing me. She crossed her arms, jaw tight. So what? You're punishing me? Teaching me a lesson with a dirty dish? I shook my head. No. I just stopped pretending everything's fine. She didn't say anything for a second. Then she laughed. Short, bitter, almost mocking. God, you're so dramatic. It's a damn plate. And there it was. The sentence. The one that made everything inside me go still. Because yeah, it was a damn plate, but it was also a symbol. A stand-in for 100 moments that never mattered to her but chipped away at me little by little. The ignored texts, the cold shoulder, the nights she came home late without explanation, the dinners eaten in silence, the way she looked right through me like I was just furniture. I stared down at my food, suddenly not hungry anymore. It all starts with small things, I said quietly. A dirty plate, a cold look, no thank you. And one day you realize you're living with a stranger. That hit something. I saw it, just for a second, flicker across her face. A crack, a hesitation, but she covered it fast, rolled her eyes. You're being ridiculous. Then she turned and walked away, up the stairs. Door shut, not slammed, just shut. And I sat there, alone at the table, staring at her untouched food on that dirty plate. And I realized something that I hadn't let myself say out loud until right then. This wasn't just about her not seeing me. It was about me finally seeing her. The silence after she walked away felt heavier than any argument we'd ever had. It was like the air changed, dense, still. I could hear the faint hum of the fridge, the tick of the wall clock, my own breath, but nothing from upstairs. No footsteps, no movement. Just a closed door between us. The way there had been for months, only now it wasn't symbolic anymore. It was real. I sat at the table longer than I needed to. I didn't touch her plate, didn't throw the food away, just stared at it. And here's the strange thing. I didn't feel angry. Not exactly. I didn't feel proud either. This wasn't some gotcha moment. I wasn't trying to humiliate her or make a point I could gloat about later. What I felt was tired. Bone-deep tired. Like I'd been carrying this weight, this quiet ache, for so long that setting it down, even in this small way, left me unsure what to do with my hands. You spend so long pretending things are okay, that the pretending becomes the relationship. And when you stop pretending, even just for a second, it all crumbles faster than you expected. Like it was only ever held together with tape and wishful thinking. I started thinking about all the tiny ways I'd tried to keep us together over the years. The notes I left in her coat pocket. The Spotify playlists I made for her commutes. The time I ran to 3 different stores in a snowstorm because she was craving that one brand of tea. None of it fixed anything. None of it mattered. Not because she's evil or cruel. I don't believe that. But because somewhere along the way she just stopped caring. And I kept trying to make up the difference with effort, with patience, with love that felt more like labor. That's the part that hurts the most. Not the plate, not her reaction, but knowing that I'd been screaming silently for help, and the person I loved most had been wearing noise-canceling headphones the whole time. Eventually, I got up, put my plate in the dishwasher, left hers where it was. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. I just felt honest. That night I couldn't sleep. Not from anger. Not from guilt. Just noise. Not outside, but in my head, memories banging around. Louder now that everything else had gone still. It's wild what your mind drags up when you're lying in the dark. I kept thinking about our first apartment. The one with the slanted floor and the leaky faucet we never got fixed. We used to sit on the kitchen counter after dinner, feet dangling, sharing a single beer because we were broke and it felt romantic. She used to steal fries off my plate when she thought I wasn't looking. I always let her. I remembered her laugh. Not the polite chuckle she started doing later, but the real one, loud, uncontrollable, with that little gasp at the end. She used to laugh like that all the time. Back when we still had inside jokes. Back when we still had us. And then I remembered a night about 6 months ago. I was washing dishes. She came in, stood behind me for a second, and I felt her watching. Thought maybe, just maybe, she'd wrap her arms around me like she used to. Thought we might have a moment. But she just said, "You missed a spot," and walked away. I laughed at the time. Pretended it didn't sting. But it did. It really did. It's all those little things, man. That's the part people don't get. Everyone talks about cheating, lying, some big betrayal. But they don't talk about what it's like to die by 1,000 paper cuts. When love doesn't explode, it just decays. And the worst part? You still hope. Even when it's bleeding out, you keep hoping it'll come back to life. One conversation. One date night. One spark. I tried to believe in the spark. I wanted to. But hope becomes a form of self-betrayal after a while. You start gaslighting yourself into thinking it's not that bad. That if you just hang in long enough, love will remember where you live. I finally understood that night, sitting there with that dirty plate still on the table, her bedroom door closed upstairs. That love hadn't just left the building. It had been gone for a long time. And I'd been the only one standing at the door waiting for it to come home. I came downstairs before her. It was early. The kind of morning where the world feels like it's holding its breath. Light filtering in through the blinds, dust floating in the air like it's got nowhere to be. I made coffee for myself only. I didn't even think about pouring her a cup, which felt strange. Not rebellious. Not bitter. Just unfamiliar. And there it was. The plate. Still on the table, untouched. Bits of food now dried and hardened into the porcelain like a scar. It sat there like a reminder, like a question no one wanted to ask out loud. I didn't move it. Didn't even look at it too long. Just sipped my coffee and waited to see how this was going to go. Part of me thought maybe she'd come down and laugh it off. Make a joke. Say, okay, I get it. Even if she didn't mean it, maybe she'd try. Maybe we'd talk. Maybe we'd pretend to want to fix it. But she came down like nothing had happened. Hair tied up, phone in hand, scrolling as she walked. She looked at the table, at the plate, and her face didn't even flicker. She just grabbed a granola bar from the pantry, mumbled morning, and went straight back upstairs. That was it. No mention of last night. No, why did you do that? No, let's talk. Just airbrushed right out of existence. A passive rewrite of history before it could settle into truth. And I realized. She didn't want to fix it. She wanted to ignore it. She always had. Every time something broke between us, she acted like if we didn't name it, it would disappear. Like pain needs permission to be real. And I let her do it for years. I let her silence dictate the terms of our survival. But not anymore. Because now I had seen it. Really seen it. The gap between us wasn't a rough patch. It wasn't just stress or just a phase. It was a canyon. And she wasn't trying to build a bridge. She was just learning how to live on the other side. I didn't follow her upstairs. I didn't ask if she was okay. Didn't try to talk it out. Didn't push. And that was new. Old me would have chased her down the hallway, gently knocked on the door, tried to soften the edges. Tried to fix it like I always did. Patch the hole, smooth it over, get us back to normal. But normal wasn't working. Normal was where I died quietly a little more every day. So I let the silence sit. Let the air grow still. Let her have her avoidance. I went about my day, cleaned up the kitchen, still didn't touch the plate, answered work emails, took a long walk around the block. And the whole time something in me was shifting. Like a fog slowly lifting. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just that low, steady ache of clarity. I started thinking about all the times I'd swallowed my needs to keep the peace. All the moments I'd told myself it's not worth the argument or maybe she's just tired. And I realized how often I'd made excuses for her, not out of love, but out of fear. Fear of rocking the boat. Fear of being too sensitive. Fear that if I held up a mirror to what we become, I wouldn't like what stared back. But now? Now I couldn't unsee it. That dirty plate, as ridiculous as it sounds, had said more than any conversation we'd had in a year. It was the truth sitting in plain sight. A monument to everything unspoken between us. And the strangest part was, I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt sad. Empty, yes, but also lighter. Like I had finally admitted something to myself I'd been afraid to name. We were done. Not because of the plate, but because we both stopped choosing each other long before it ever got crusted with leftover food. And I think maybe in her own way she knew it too. That's why she didn't say anything. Because when someone doesn't care enough to fight anymore, that's when you know it's over. Later that night, I found myself scrolling through old photos on my phone. Not out of nostalgia, more like curiosity. Like I was trying to remember if we were ever actually happy or if I'd just rewritten the past to make the present feel less lonely. There was one picture that caught me. Us at the beach. Windy day. Hair in her face, sand stuck to her legs. She was laughing full-bodied, mouth wide open, not trying to look cute, not performing for the camera. And I looked so damn in love with her in that moment. Just staring at her like she hung the moon. We weren't married yet. Just dating. Still in that phase where everything feels electric. Where you fight hard but make up even harder. Where saying I love you felt like a beginning, not a duty. I remembered how we used to argue over stupid things, who forgot to buy eggs, who hogged the blanket but always circled back. There was still effort. There was one. We'd sit cross-legged on the bed and actually talk even if it was hard. We wanted to understand each other back then. And then somewhere along the line, that stopped. Not all at once, but gradually. She stopped asking what was wrong. I stopped telling her. She got quiet. I got quieter. We started speaking in transactions. Can you grab milk? What time is your meeting? Don't forget to feed the cat. The kind of conversations that sound like communication but have no soul in them. There were moments, scattered, brief, where I tried to break through. A hand on her back in the kitchen. How are you, really? Whispered in the dark. A playlist I made of songs that reminded me of when we met. Sometimes she responded. Gave me a soft smile, a kiss on the forehead, a thank you. And I'd think, maybe we're still in this. But those moments became fewer. Like drops of water in a well that was slowly drying up. And when I think back now, not with rose-colored glasses, but with real, raw honesty, I don't miss her. I miss who we used to be. And the version of myself I was when I still believed she saw me. Because that man? He thought love was enough. There's something uniquely painful about all the words you never say. I used to rehearse them in my head, usually in the shower or on the drive home. Full conversations that never made it past my lips. Things like, do you still love me, or are we just coexisting? Why do I feel lonelier when you're in the room than when I'm alone? When did you stop looking at me like I mattered? But I never said them. Because I was afraid. Afraid that if I said the quiet part out loud, she'd agree. Or worse, she'd shrug. Like none of it was surprising. So I kept it all in. Learned to live around the silence. Learned how to take up less space emotionally so she wouldn't pull further away. She used to say I was too sensitive, like that was some kind of flaw. Like feeling deeply was a weakness she had to tolerate. So I trained myself to be neutral. To nod instead of react. To carry the tension without adding weight to it. But the cost of that silence? It was me. I lost myself slowly, one unsaid word, one buried feeling at a time. And now, looking back, I realized the saddest part wasn't that we didn't have the hard conversations. It's that we didn't have any. We talked about groceries, bills, her coworkers, the latest drama on TV, but never about us. Never about what was breaking. Never about the cracks we were stepping over every day like they weren't growing wider. We just kept pretending. Like roommates in an emotionally bankrupt lease. And I think deep down, we both knew we were waiting for the other person to end it. Waiting for a final straw. A reason. An excuse. Funny how in the end it wasn't a fight. Wasn't cheating. Wasn't betrayal. It was a dirty plate. A small, quiet act of truth in a sea of unspoken lies. And now I wonder, if I had just said those words years ago, really said them, would we still be here? Or would we have let go sooner, with a little more grace and a lot less regret? People don't talk enough about what happens when love turns into obligation. When I love you isn't something you feel, but something you say because it's expected. A reflex. Like locking the door when you leave or saying bless you when someone sneezes. That's what it had become. We said I love you in passing on the way out the door, before bed. But there was no warmth behind it. No pause, no wait. Just syllables filling the space where connection used to live. And yet, we stayed. We still made plans. Bought groceries. Paid bills. Texted each other to pick up dog food or remind about dentist appointments. We functioned like a team, just not one in love. Sometimes I'd catch her looking at me across the room and it wasn't anger or affection in her face. It was something worse. Indifference. Like she was staring through me. Like I could vanish, and her day would go on exactly the same. And I knew that's how I had started to look at her, too. Not out of cruelty. Not even out of resentment. But because we'd both stopped asking the question, how are you, really? We had built a life out of routines, not love. And routines are hard to break. Even when they're hurting you. You wake up, you do what needs to be done, and you go to bed hoping the feeling of emptiness isn't as heavy tomorrow. But it always is. I used to tell myself, at least we don't fight. But silence isn't peace. It's just the absence of noise. And love without noise, without spark, mess, effort, that's not love. That's duty. So when people say, you can't leave her over something like a dirty plate, I want to shake them, because they don't understand. The dirty plate wasn't the beginning. It was the end of pretending. A few days passed. We didn't talk about it. Not the plate. Not the dinner. Not the silence that had settled between us like a fog we were both pretending didn't exist. We went through the motions. Good morning, good night, what's for dinner? Did you pay the power bill? Like actors reciting lines in a play neither of us wanted to star in anymore. She never mentioned the plate again. She didn't even move it. Eventually, I did. I scraped the food into the trash and set the plate in the sink. Didn't wash it right away. Couldn't. It felt like more than just food stuck to it. It felt like everything I'd held on to finally hardening into something real. I think by then, we both knew we were done. We just didn't have the language for it yet. Because the end of a relationship doesn't always come with shouting or slammed doors. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a slow realization that hits you when you're brushing your teeth or folding laundry or setting down a dirty plate. We never had a breakup conversation. There was no "we need to talk" moment. Just a growing distance neither of us tried to cross anymore. It's strange how the end can already be here, and yet you keep living as if it's not. You still sit on the same couch, sleep in the same bed, pass each other in the hallway, but emotionally, you're already miles apart. Ships docked at different harbors, just waiting for someone to untie the rope. I remember lying next to her one night, the glow of her phone lighting up the ceiling, and thinking, I don't even know what I'd say if I reached for her. That's when I knew. I wasn't grieving what we were. I was grieving what we would never be again. And somehow, that hurt less than trying to save something that was already gone. There's a kind of heartbreak no one prepares you for, when you're still in the relationship, but you've already left. Not physically, not yet, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, whatever word you want to use. You've packed your bags, folded the memories neatly, and started walking toward the door in your mind. That's where I was. I'd still cook dinner some nights, still ask if she needed anything from the store, still answer her texts with, sure, and yep, and okay. But it was autopilot, muscle memory, like blinking or breathing, something I did without thinking, without feeling. The difference was subtle, but I noticed it. I stopped waiting for her to laugh at my jokes. I stopped watching her walk up the stairs hoping she'd turn around and smile. I stopped looking at her and thinking, maybe if I just try a little harder, because I had, for too long. And love, real love, isn't supposed to feel like begging for attention. It isn't supposed to be a solo performance with someone you used to call your partner sitting silently in the front row. I started going to bed earlier, not because I was tired, but because the silence on the couch with her felt louder than the dark alone in the bedroom. I stopped kissing her goodnight. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did, but not enough to ask why. It's a strange kind of pain, this quiet leaving. You carry it like a secret, not because you want to hide it, but because saying it out loud would mean you'd have to do something about it. And at the time, I wasn't ready. Not quite. I was still holding onto a version of us that only existed in memory. But every day, I stepped a little closer to letting go. And by the time I actually left, I had already been gone for months. I didn't leave with a fight. There was no yelling, no dramatic scene, no suitcase flung into the car at midnight. I just left, quietly, clearly, like someone finally stepping out of a room where the air had been thinning for years. I sat her down one Saturday morning, sunlight coming through the window, soft and undeserved, and I told her the truth, that I wasn't angry, that I didn't hate her, that I wasn't looking for someone else, or trying to punish her, or overreacting to one bad night. I just told her I was done living in a home that didn't feel like love anymore, that I had tried, really tried, but I couldn't keep pouring from a cup that never got refilled, that the dirty plate wasn't a stunt. It wasn't petty. It was a quiet scream I couldn't hold in anymore. She didn't cry. She looked stunned, maybe even relieved. She asked, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Yeah. I think I've been sure for a long time. I just didn't want to admit it." We didn't talk much after that. She moved in with her sister for a while. I stayed behind in the house that felt more like a museum than a home. And one night, after everything had settled, I washed that plate. The same one I'd left dirty. I stood at the sink, water running warm over my hands, and I scrubbed every bit of crusted food off it, not because I was cleaning up for her, but because I was ready to start fresh. For me, it all starts with small things. A dirty plate. A cold look. No thank you. And then one day you wake up and realize you're not in love anymore. You're just next to someone. I don't regret loving her. I don't even regret staying as long as I did. But I'm proud of the day I chose to stop pretending. Because choosing peace, choosing myself, was the loudest, most honest thing I've ever done. The end.